And you are on, Big Daddy. Where are you at the arena?
We're in like it's
Hmm.
like a luxury suite food area, I guess. Like they've
Oh.
got a kitchen set up over there. I think that this is for the rich people that come to games.
And
So,
since
so
there's no games, you can get in there. That's why because you're
yeah,
not rich normally. I mean, none of us are, right?
no. Though I will say this press pass seems to be able to get you pretty much anywhere in this building. So
Has it been a good trip so far?
it has been. I mean, first of all, I think they've done a great job with the tournament setup. I mean, for us, it's so easy. The media workroom is right next to the floor, and the Auburn locker room is the first locker room right next to the media workroom.
Hmm.
So like everything that I've done has been happening in like a 100 foot sort of setup. It's very easy.
Well, there's no
Uh,
doubt.
I mean, Salt Lake City is a super easy city to navigate because there's nothing really going on.
Did y'all find anywhere to party or whatever?
I mean, we've gone out um, to a couple places, but I mean, it's not like a lit city
Right.
exactly.
But I mean,
But
you're pretty lit, right?
yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's my kind of speed to be honest with you. But
Slower.
yeah, just a little bit.
Have you run into anyone that wanted to cast aspersions based on your hair?
I haven't there. I've seen some people a lot. I've seen a lot of man buns since I've been here.
Oh wow.
I've been very surprised. I mean, I didn't know anything about Utah really coming in, but I've been surprised about the number of tattoos that I've seen, the number of long-haired people that I've seen, and the number of like bull nose rings. Like everybody, it must it's a thing around here. Like everybody's got these like, nose rings that
Like the
hook
big
the
ones.
middle. Yeah,
Would you ever consider doing that?
I would never get a piercing, no,
Like
of any
anywhere?
kind. No. I
Is
mean, I
it?
told you when we were in Nashville about my fear of needles.
What? Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was more than that. I thought it might have been philosophical versus just you're scared of a needle.
No,
But
I
that's
have no
cool
philosophical.
if you're scared of needles too. That's fine.
I mean, if someone else has the courage to use a needle to pierce themselves or get a tattoo, more power to them.
More power to him. That's what I said. All right, so we're going to talk basketball, Benny, and then we'll talk about UFOs.
Okay.
Do you have any shout outs?
I actually don't really have
Okay.
any shout outs.
It's okay.
So I saw a lot of people complaining about us not having shout outs on the Wednesday show.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they don't understand how hard it is.
I mean, I also just want to shout out everyone. Everyone's been super
Super what?
positive about my coverage that I've been doing out here.
Yeah.
I've appreciated just everyone who's been reading everything out here.
That may not be exactly the way I'm seeing it, Benny. I think people. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember the person that was complaining about why did you send Ben out there?
Yeah.
I'm just like, bro, because he's the guy that got sent out there. And if you'd like to send me a DM, I'll be happy to ignore it. That's my way of supporting you, Benny.
And we also, I did want to give a shout out to 94 WDE actually
All right.
for smoothing things over. We smoothed things over after our little, dust up in the game thread yesterday.
Yeah, I don't. He said something about like he knocked you for your lack of professionalism, and this guy was like raising hell
Well,
with you, right? Yeah,
well,
I
I
know.
mean,
I
to be
remember now.
fair,
He said, well, you don't ever give us any score updates, and I'm like, the thread has been literally loaded with score updates. There's like 2 on this page.
yeah. I mean, and I was just trying to be a little cheeky. You know how I get
It's the
sometimes, but
bunker. Yes, I do know what you mean, and it should be that way. And you didn't call him names. You didn't say his wife was a. I was going to say a bad word, but you weren't doing any of that. People, man, I don't know what to tell you. Even our great subscribers, sometimes they're a little crazy. That was a really weird criticism, though. So you weren't giving scoring
yeah,
updates.
but I also didn't want it to get piled on. Like I didn't want everyone sort of chimed in and started getting onto him for questioning the scores updates in the thread, and
Yeah,
I was just trying to have a little fun. I
Sure.
didn't want anyone to get bullied.
All right, we're fixing to get started. Benny, you ready?
Yep.
We are live on the internet for the 5 people that are watching. Should I put this on the bunker? Is it worth putting on the bunker?
Yeah, you can put it on the bunker.
All right, I'll put it on the bunker.
I mean, I only say that just because so many people have been asking for rundowns. I don't think they totally understand the logistics of what it takes to be out here covering this, and then us being in different time zones, and it's just
We're out here.
it's not the easiest thing to get coordinated, but
Ah, that's true. That is true. Oh, there's going to be an echo for a second. until I can get this. All right, we're back. I'll go ahead and put it on the bunker. That's fine. No, we need that page. Need that page. They'll say, if they're watching 5 minutes after we're finished, they'll say, what? I'll put live show Ben from Utah. How about that? Let's see if that pops up. Yep. All righty. Oh, Mark would like to know, I know, you're probably not going to know the answer to this, but he'd like to know if 3.2% is still the max ABV on beer in Utah. If it's true, that's terrible.
So what I think I figured out is draft beers have to be below 4%, but if you get it in a can, it can be higher than that. And I don't really understand why that would be a rule. There's some weird laws out here though, like the hotels. There's like at the hotel that a couple of people on the beat are staying at. There's what appears to be a little bar restaurant type place in the hotel, and they asked, "Can I get drinks at the bar?" And they said, "Well, it's not a bar, but you can get drinks over there." And there's like a sign in the whatever you want to call it that says this is not a bar. But you can buy a drink, but to get it, you have to get some kind of food along with it. So you get like a thing of chips or whatever.
That's kind of
like
strange.
Like they can't legally call it a bar, I guess.
I mean, because at my bar up here on the corner, we can get 14% ABV stuff. I mean, I guess that's one of the joys of living in Alabama, right? I mean,
right. But
my little village. Mark says he lived in Park City in '98, and he had to shotgun beers to catch a buzz. That's sad. They have whiskey though, right? We could drink whiskey out there.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had any beer since I've been out here.
Have you had any whiskey?
Yeah, I had some whiskey. I had some Tito's and pineapple.
Oh God, don't say that.
Why?
Keep that to yourself, man. Tito's and pineapple? If you were getting that for your girl, that'd be fine. But for you to drink that?
That's my hangover avoidance drink. I took a shot of Jameson. Does that help?
You could be drinking Cathead. It is delicious. Should I have a shot right now? No.
Oh, is that what the issue? Is that what the issue was? That it was cat? Was the issue that it was a feminine drink or that it wasn't Cathead?
Both. We love Cathead for at least 6 more days. Benny, I'm going to go ahead and start the show.
All right, let's do it.
We'll just be conversational and have fun, as we often do.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Matthews, I just have to assume that's not the real Brian Matthews. Says he probably puts pineapples on pizza. Tell me that's not true.
I do not. I am very anti-pineapples on pizza.
Brian, we love you, by the way. I just thought it would just be me and Benny with him being in the arena and stuff. I don't know. But we love Brian.
I love Brian. I love Brian more than you do.
Well, I love him a lot.
Well, that tells you how much I love him.
Hi-yo! Hello again, and welcome to the AuburnSports.com rundown presented by Voodoo Wing Company. This very show, is your favorite podcast for all things Auburn and maybe a few other schools when they're in need of gentle disparagement. And you know which school I'd like to disparage right now? New Mexico State University, for having lost in a game yesterday that they could have, should have, possibly won. But they didn't. You know why? Because Bruce Pearl. Because they ran into Bruce Pearl, and Bruce Pearl gets what he wants. Unless it's extra antiperspirant, in which case he only gets just the regular allotment. Yes, today is March 22nd in the year 2019. This is episode number 378 of this fine program. Many of them that I have done with Brian Matthews, who is following along on the video today, but he is not part of the show today for reasons that I may or may not describe later. But I love Brian more than Ben does. And this is...
Agree to disagree.
This cannot be disputed. I also want to mention before we get started, Auburn is going to take on the hated Jayhawks of the Kansas University variety. That will be at 8:40 Central Daylight Time on the TBS, which you may know as the Turner Broadcasting System. Indeed. My name is Jay Tate. I am publisher of AuburnSports.com, and I'm joined today by Mr. Ben Wolk. Last name is W-O-L-K, and you pronounce that Wolk. Ben is on scene in Salt Lake City, Utah. Ben, word.
Word. Last name Wolk. Middle name Lawrence. fun fact about me, was named after my mom was in graduate school at Kansas when I was born. And so my middle name is Lawrence for that reason.
Does she still like the Jayhawks?
Yes, I mean, she's not like a crazy, avid sports fan, but
Yeah.
she likes to see Kansas do well. I mean, she has some like, what do you call it? Stained glass Jayhawk stuff in her little
Really?
she has like a stained glass window, and she has like some stained glass Jayhawks up there as well.
So what would you say? What's your mom's alma mater? What would she say?
Well, I mean, she has 3 degrees. So, I mean, she got her undergraduate degree from Graceland College in Iowa, Lamoni, Iowa. And then she got her master's from Florida State and then her PhD from Kansas.
Okay. So she's not going to take Graceland College.
She doesn't really take Graceland College, no. But, I mean, she likes to see Florida State and Kansas do well.
Craddock would like you to know that he's captivated. I don't know what he's captivated by, but he's captivated. I guess he loves the show.
Yeah.
He loves you being on there. So your mom's undergrad is from Graceland College?
Yep.
And
Iowa.
my mom's is from Southeast Missouri State in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. So 2 big school girls there, no doubt.
I've told you this before. My parents met when they were both professors at Southwest Missouri State,
which is in Springfield, Missouri, if I believe.
Springfield, Missouri. That's correct.
Which would you call that your circle of birth?
Yeah. I mean, I was born in Cox Hospital in Springfield, Missouri, so I guess so.
Craddock says, isn't an alma mater your undergrad? That is a fair point.
That's a fair question, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess she identifies with Graceland College then.
I think you can pick whatever you want. If you graduate from more than one, it's your pick. If you put it in the work, you're putting in the money, or if your parents are putting in the money, who cares? William Taylor, word. He wants to say hi, boys. We see you on the show somewhat often, and we're glad to have you. And Craddock says, as you mentioned, alma mater should be your undergrad. One other thing we can all agree on, you, me, Craddock, Brian Matthews, Mr. Carter, and others, that Voodoo Wing Company is a great place to eat. Ben told me the other day that he is sad. The hardest part of being in Salt Lake City is not being away from Auburn or being away from his lovely young lass. It's that he doesn't have any Voodoo Wing Company. He doesn't have one single Voodoo Wing Company in the entire state of Utah to go and enjoy those delicious wings. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to describe to Benny the great things that we eat at Voodoo, and I'm going to make him covet them even more. Those warm, freshly fried, golden brown wings, the traditionals. You've got the boneless, Benny, that you could put in your mouth with that delicious Cajun ranch sauce. Get those Sidewinder fries. Oh, in your case, the fried pickles. Dip them in that delicious, homemade, delicious ranch dressing.
Oof.
And they will cover the pickle. And you will put that in your mouth, and it will be so good. And guess when that's not going to happen? Today. It's not going to happen today. Although if you get the real bad hankering, you can drive down to Vegas. They have 2 locations over there, Benny.
That's true.
For those of you in Lee County or who are more prone to be in Lee County than you are Las Vegas, it is on College Street, 0.3 of a mile north of the interstate there. It's at exit 51, so just a little bit north of the interstate there. It's near where the Supper Club once stood, which is soon to be another strip mall. But everybody listening knows where the Supper Club was because you were probably there at some point in your life, at least somewhat intoxicated and having a great time. And for the males on the show, you were probably had your eyes on a girl, and you were probably thinking that you were going to get a date with her, and you were probably a lot less cool than you actually were, and you struck out. Not speaking from personal experience. I'm just saying I believe that's happened more than once. Do you know anything else that happened inside the Supper Club, Benny?
I've heard that Jeffrey Lee has had himself a fair share of experiences there, including at least once. He's only told us once, but I'm sure that there's a possibility of more times that he's ended up in the bottom of a trash can.
He has, and I was not there to see it, but B-Matt and I, both who have known Jeffrey 20 years, know that sometimes his mouth gets the best of him, and he could end up in the bottom of a trash can. Voodoo Wing Company on College Street, 0.3 of a mile north of the interstate. You can check them out on the website at voodoowingco.com. Benny, we have stuff to talk about. Auburn earned a very narrow yet significant victory over the hated Aggies of New Mexico State yesterday by a final tally of 78-77. Can you describe the absolute chaos that was going on in that arena with that weird finish?
Absolutely bizarre game. I mean, I would assume that most people felt this way when they were watching it. I mean, for a majority of the second half, it felt like Auburn was gonna not necessarily coast, but pull out, a fairly comfortable victory. And then obviously the last 2 minutes or so, pretty much everything that they had worked for 38 minutes completely started to fall apart.
Crazy.
I mean, there's a lot of explanations for why that happened probably, but it was also one of those situations where it seemed like every single thing had to go wrong. I mean, Jared turned the ball over 3 times. Jared fouls out of the game. Horace Spencer fouls out of the game. Samir Doughty misses a free throw. I mean, Jared Harper and Samir Doughty both missed 2 ends of free throws in the second half, and they're probably the 2 best free throw shooters on the team. New Mexico State had to hit until the last shot in the corner and the free throws just beforehand. New Mexico State had to hit pretty much every single shot they took in the final minute. I mean, it ended up being the best game of the day, from my opinion. I mean, I didn't get to watch a ton of other games, but just looking at scores and how things unfolded, I mean, it was as wild of a finish as there was in college basketball yesterday. And obviously there were some interesting emotional reactions from the team following an NCAA tournament win, because it was a win, but in many ways it didn't feel that way.
It felt dirty, didn't it?
It did. But I mean, I think that the mindset in the 5 to 10 minutes coming off the court was much different than after they'd been in the locker room for 15, 20 minutes or so. I mean, once they were able to really decompress and realize, hey, we just won an NCAA tournament game. That doesn't happen at Auburn very often. I mean, to win an NCAA tournament game is a good thing. But I think that the fact that, Horace Spencer, to me, said it best. I got into the locker room and everyone was pissed. There wasn't a single person in there that wasn't mad about what had just happened. And he thinks that that's a good thing, because he remembers last year when they beat College of Charleston, which was a close game as well, closer than they would have liked, but they were all just happy to get an NCAA tournament win because they hadn't gotten one before. And I feel like the mentality right now is so much different than it was a year ago, and they're pissed. I mean, winning by 1 point against New Mexico State, as good as, I thought New Mexico State was a pretty good team and an interesting matchup for Auburn because those guards were so quick.
Yeah.
And their bigs weren't tall, but their bigs could play. I mean, Johnny McCants, for portions of that game, was the best player on the floor. So,
yeah, I think the bunker was losing its mind. Well, first of all, the game was really weird at the end. And the only game that I've personally seen that was like that was Auburn playing Creighton in the 2000 tournament. Now, Benny, I know you're like probably on the floor crawling with a blanket or whatever, but in that game, Auburn was up, I think, 18, and they were so close at the end. They were up by like 8 with a minute left. They put a manager in the game. It was Jimbo Tolbert, good guy, friend of the site. Put him in the game, and then everything just fell apart, dude, and they were lucky to get out of that game. Mac McGadney hit a big shot at the end to bail them out, but I was like, I'd never see that again. And then this game was very similar. It was just weird. Auburn in the NCAA tournament, man, weird stuff happens.
Have you taken a look at this plus-minus chart from yesterday by any chance?
Not right off, Is it good?
So it's insane. Like, it makes absolutely no sense. Like, this, I feel like, tells the story of how bizarre of a game this was. Do you know who had the best plus-minus for Auburn yesterday?
Javon McCormick?
Malik Dunbar was plus 19.
Damn.
So get this. Here were the people that were in the pluses. Malik Dunbar was plus 19. Anthony McLemore was plus 8. D'Angelo Purifoy was plus 9. Javon McCormick was plus 6. And Austin Wiley was plus 4. Now look at the minuses. Jared Harper was minus 2. Bryce Brown was minus 7. Chuma Okeke was minus 12. Horace Spencer was minus 7. And Samir Doughty was minus 13. I mean, that makes no sense.
No sense. We got a question here. Chase wants to know, what the hell has happened to Ant? Why is he fouling people 90 feet from the basket? And furthermore, let me ask you as a question from JG Tate. Why can't he play anymore? He had another ineffective game yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, he just seems like he's not the guy that he used to be.
Right?
And it's felt like that all year, but it almost feels like he's even deteriorated some since what he was playing like in the middle of this season. So I don't know. I mean, I understand why Bruce keeps putting him out. Now, granted, he only played 12 minutes yesterday, but right, I understand why Bruce keeps putting him out there because, one, they've won a lot of games in a row, 9 games in a row with Anthony McLemore in the starting lineup. You don't want to completely change what you're doing when you're having so much success. But also, he does stretch the floor, for opposing teams defensively because they have to be conscious of a 5-man who can shoot the 3. Now, is that worth what he brings on the defensive end? And as a rebounder, I mean, that's a decision Bruce Pearl has to make. And I think that you're seeing, with Anthony playing 12 minutes, let's see, Horace Spencer played 16 minutes and Austin Wiley played 11 minutes. I mean, it's a pretty even balance, even split now between the three centers. So even though he's in the starting lineup, but I wouldn't necessarily call him the starter so much at this point.
I mean, it's amazing to me how many, I'm just thinking about old school basketball where you shoot a ball and the big guys rebound. How many shots yesterday Auburn took with not one dude in position to get a rebound? Like they literally had shots where all 5 players were either at the perimeter, the arc, or beyond it. And I'm like, who could even possibly get this rebound? I mean, there's nobody. But they just kind of they go that way.
To be fair, I mean, New Mexico State is one of the best rebounding teams in the country.
We don't just give up.
I know you don't give up, but I mean, Chris Jans, New Mexico State's coach, said it after the game. I mean, it is New Mexico State's MO to rebound the basketball. Now, I think that something Bruce Pearl alluded to yesterday that is frustrating for him, and I think that he, attributed some of that to fatigue, was just that they were losing every 50-50 ball. Like any rebound that could have gone either way, New Mexico State was getting that rebound.
Yeah.
And, I don't know how much of that you can blame on fatigue versus that's just kind of what Auburn's identity is at this point. But, you'd think it would get harder against Kansas just because of the physical ability of a team that Kansas has.
The parallel that I draw on this with Anthony McLemore is like a girl that you meet at a bar that you think might be a lesbian, but maybe she's not. I mean, she's cutish, but she's kind of got some lesbian qualities, and you have to make that split-second decision of whether I'm going to even try to hit on her because she may be insulted or she may be down with it. I think that's where Anthony is. You just kind of have to make a decision.
I'm not so sure I have much of a comment to that analogy, but
yeah,
I like the analogy nonetheless.
Brian, on the other hand, thinks that fatigue may have played a role in that game yesterday. The bunker thinks that's bunk. The bunker thinks there's no way these kids at their age and in their physical condition would get tired.
I think that playing 5 games in 8 days is hard on anyone. Bruce Pearl said it like 6 times yesterday, and it doesn't necessarily affect everyone, but when you've got guys like Jared and Bryce that play a ton of minutes, it can wear on you. I think that they've got to be thrilled that they end up getting the last tip-off time on Saturday night. I mean, that couldn't have worked out any better for them. I know Bruce said yesterday they were going to go pretty light at practice today, do a lot of film work and some stretching more than, like a full-scale practice just because he doesn't want them on their feet more than they have to be. Some people have brought up the elevation side of things as well and the fact that New Mexico State's accustomed to playing in that kind of elevation, whereas Auburn isn't. I'm not a scientist. I don't know how much that really is affecting things. But I think that fatigue it's impossible to look at the last 2 minutes of that game and the way that Auburn was struggling to defend and Jared Harper making some careless turnovers. And I mean, Jared fouled out for the first time since South Carolina game last year. And a couple of them were kind of like the push off offensive foul. That's just like that was a tired, lazy foul that Jared had.
You talk about really late there, right against the sideline?
Yeah, like at half court, and he kind of pushes off of them. I mean, that's something that I feel like was a direct result of Jared being tired.
Dude, Jared seemed almost forlorn after that game. Like, I played like ass. He didn't say that. It's not a quote. I'm, parenthetical on that one. But he played very poorly, and he managed the game very poorly in the last 90 seconds. And I'm really just shocked by this because he's been so good in the mostly of this year, certainly in the last month. He's been so good about keeping his wits about him and running things the smart way, particularly under pressure. And I thought he absolutely lost his mind yesterday.
Yeah, and he didn't shy away from that same sentiment after the game. I mean, he said and now granted, he was still the leading scorer and had 17 points and was, shot 6 of 11 from the floor, 50% from 3. So it's not like he just was a complete mess the entire game, but it's hard to look at those last 2 minutes and not ask, what went wrong.
Yeah.
And, he said he feels like this is his team and he feels like normally he is in control of this offense and this team. And that just was not the case in those final 2 minutes. And I think everyone took a similar mentality. We're not going to let this happen again on Saturday. I mean, we're going to come with the right mindset. We're going to come fresh. We're going to be ready to go. Now, it's easy to say all these things. You got Kansas, one of the biggest, most prominent blue bloods in the country on Saturday. So you've got to be ready for it.
Here we go with the blue bloods. Man, it's going to be a big game.
Bloods. It is crazy, though, that Auburn could have to face Kansas, North Carolina, Kentucky, assuming, they can get some wins. I mean, to play those 3 programs, that's as blue blood of a stretch as I can remember
Well,
in an NCAA tournament.
at some point, you've got to be tough. You got to win some big games against some big teams. And I mean, round of 32, round of 16, that's when you do it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to lay it down. As Rat said in the 80s, don't you know you got to lay it down right now? Mark on here says that Harper said, I guess in an interview, that he wasn't aware of how many fouls he had at the end. So when he fouled out, he didn't realize that was his fifth? Is that true?
And I was not around when he said that specifically, but I also know on that fifth foul that he got, I thought that it was Bruce saying, hey, foul on the floor because we're up 3 so that they go and shoot 2 at the line. But apparently that was not the case. Bruce did not want him to foul with 14 seconds left on the shot clock on the game clock. He wanted more time to run off before they did anything like that. So it was not an intentional foul on Jared's part. I don't know for certain that he was unaware of his foul situation. But
Brian Matthews would like everyone to know that Auburn's approximate elevation is 700 feet above sea level and Lawrence is 866. So Kansas doesn't have much of an advantage when it comes to playing at altitude. That's great stuff there, Brian. Thank you.
That is great stuff. I think it was Auburn is 702 feet above sea level. I looked this up today because people were getting on to me about my lack of knowledge about elevation. I was not aware how Las Cruces, New Mexico, I was not aware of the elevation.
That's the stuff that you should know as the basketball beat writer at auburnsports.com.
Someone even said, I think it was Eagle 5 said, I'm surprised Benny wasn't aware of the elevation in New Mexico.
I thought you'd been there myself. Mr. Harrell wants to know, are players supposed to keep track of their fouls, or is that more of a coaching thing? That's a good question.
I mean, I would assume that as a coach, you need to be letting guys know.
Yeah, like don't, if you're going to foul, you need to have one to give. We don't need to be losing Jared here at the end of the game. Although he was playing pretty poorly, so maybe you're better off without him. I don't know.
So that's one thing from that game that I found so fascinating was A.J. Harris on New Mexico State passing up the wide open layup that would have tied it and, in theory, sent it to overtime to pass it out to Terrell Brown for the 3. I mean, Jared Harper was already fouled out at that point. If I'm New Mexico State, I'm trying to get to overtime because I feel like I've got a pretty good shot with Jared Harper out of the game.
Yeah, but Javon's pretty good. I mean, he's a good player. He's a guy.
Great, man.
He's a guy who can play.
And I know some people were complaining about Javon, or maybe questioning the Javon decision to give the Coke symbol. That was
yeah, okay. Your Wi-Fi is coming in and out just a little bit. First of all, Nancy would like you to know that you did a great job questioning Bruce yesterday, if you did in fact question Bruce. Just letting you know. And also, Icratic would like to know, he wants to talk about the neck choke sign that Javon made at the free throw line, which I think some people are getting a little bit flustered about. I didn't see it as a big deal. And I felt like the question that was asked of him in the press conference also, it was almost like they were joking and laughing about it. Maybe some people are rustled about that. Benny, what do you think?
Well, that's what I was saying when the Wi-Fi broke up. I think that was badass. I mean, look, he gave the guy a choke symbol, and then he misses 2 of 3 free throws.
So he basically got the win, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was Javon's day. He was incredible. I don't know if anyone has gone and looked at the video that the Auburn basketball Twitter account posted of the post-game locker room, but you've heard it all year long from Javon and from Bruce that sometimes Bruce's wife tells him that he's way too hard on Javon and he needs to take it a little easy on him, and Javon says all the time that he feels like he's as hard on himself, as hard on Javon and Malik Dunbar as anybody else on the team, and for him to get some praise like that in the locker room, for Bryce Brown to stand up in the middle of it and go give him a hug, it just meant a lot to him for a guy who has, at times struggled to figure out what his role really is on this team.
Yeah, Javon, I remember I was doing something. I was talking to him privately. I don't know if it was the Missouri game or the South Carolina game. And he's like, Coach Pearl does like to get on me a lot. And I was like, you're right, man. He really does give you a lot of hell. He's like, yeah, I know. And I do think that, Javon gets a disproportionate amount of hell from Pearl. And maybe it's because Pearl feels like he should be better, and he has gotten a whole lot better. I would argue that Javon, and I don't watch everybody in college basketball, he's the most improved player I have seen. The most improved player I've ever seen at Auburn from beginning of season to the end of season. He's a really good player now, and I thought he was awful in the beginning. I was like, what were they thinking? But I wonder if Pearl just crawls his ass all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, I think somebody on the board mentioned this earlier today as well, but I think he was a lot like that with Bryce Brown early in Bryce Brown's career, and I think that sometimes Bruce recognizes certain things about certain guys and feels that they will respond well to that kind of coaching. I think that there's a lot of guys that do respond well to that kind of coaching, and I mean it's hard to say that it doesn't work with Javon because it seems to me Javon gets better every single game. So
he's pretty good. I mean, he's a guy you can really rely on in the clutch and make the plays.
He did say something in the locker room yesterday that I really liked. I mean, he truly believes that there's not a person in college basketball that can stop him from can keep him in front of them. I mean, he thinks that he can get by anybody in college basketball.
Well, he's done some good work here lately. We'll see if Kansas can provide a little bit more resistance. I do want to go ahead and switch gears to the Kansas Jayhawks, whom the Tigers will face tomorrow, again at 8:40 Central Daylight Time on the TBS. This is a game that a lot of people are going to be having their eye on because Kansas, as you mentioned, is very much a blue blood, although this team is not quite as strong as your typical Kansas team. They're missing some important players that are, I think one's out with an injury and one's out with a personal situation or got suspended. I don't know. I'm not a Kansas beat writer, but they're down at least two. You were thinking maybe three.
I think they were down 3 a couple of weeks ago, but I think Marcus Garrett has gotten back. I don't know if he was playing in the Big 12 tournament, but as you mentioned, he was back for the Northeastern game on Thursday.
Yeah, they absolutely dismantled Northeastern the other day. 87-53 was the final there, although Northeastern, they're okay. They're a decent team. I don't know be like Vanderbilt, probably about that strength. The thing about Kansas is they do have one dude who is really, really good. Dedrick Lawson, power forward / center. Certainly in the conversation for the player of the year. I don't have his exact points and rebounds in front of me, but I know the dude is playing off his ass. You're talking about a power forward who can play the strong game and who also is shooting 39% from three, 80% at the free throw line, 52% from the floor. I don't have any stats in front of me. This is a guy that is going to have to be the centerpiece of Auburn's defensive plan. Benny, what do you think they can do to slow this guy down? Is it a matter of just putting somebody on him and saying, fix this? Or do you just have to kind of, as a team, say, seriously, don't back down?
I mean, you have to think that Horace Spencer and Austin Wiley are going to get a bulk of those defensive minutes at center just because, I mean, we've talked about it a little bit already. I don't see Anthony McLemore as physically capable of really doing much to counter what Dedrick Lawson can do. I will say I think that Austin Wiley he feels better every day. I think that he is showing what he can do on the defensive end and why Bruce Pearl wants him out there on the floor. I mean, he was on the court for that last play of the game against New Mexico State because Bruce Pearl didn't want him to get anything easy inside, and New Mexico State ends up taking a shot from the corner, a corner three. So I would expect to see a little bit more Austin Wiley. But I mean, I said that on Wednesday, and we sort of got what Austin has been doing. I mean, I think I said he played 11 minutes, which I guess is maybe a little bit more than he was playing in the SEC tournament, but it's right around what he's been playing since he got back.
Yeah, it was like 5-9 in the SEC tournament. Got 11 the other day, so I don't know if 15 I think would be max there. But my thought on Austin Wiley is, look, dude, 5-star guy. We know he's got ability. He's trying to be a professional, right? I mean, that's the goal. So if you want to do something and you want to say, my sophomore season, I accomplished blank, it needs to be, I did something to bother Dedrick Lawson. Because that's the kind of guy you're going to be facing in the NBA, the kind of guy you're going to be trying to get a job against when it's time for you to go to the NBA. And this would be a really opportune time for Austin Wiley to do something against this guy. So
absolutely. And if I'm not mistaken, wasn't the main, really the only blue blood that was hard after Austin, wasn't it Kansas? Wasn't Kansas recruiting him pretty hard?
Yeah, it was that or Spokane Community College. I'm just kidding. It really wasn't. It was North Carolina too, right? They were in there.
Oh yeah. I think that's true. I wasn't actually around when he was getting recruited.
Oh, okay.
Or it was right when I was getting here. So.
Well, you really are pretty young, Ben.
Yeah. One thing I find very interesting, Auburn is favored in pretty much every sports book that I've looked at. They opened as a pick'em, and a lot of places has moved to 1.5 point favorite for Auburn. Ken Palm has Auburn winning the game.
That smart money's coming in on Auburn. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, which, I mean, I'm not totally surprised because, like you mentioned, this is not your typical Kansas team. I mean, they didn't win the Big 10 title or the Big 12 title for the first time in a lot of years. They haven't been at what people are accustomed to from Kansas, but it's still Kansas, It's And they've got dudes. They recruited as high a level as anybody in the country.
Their statistical markers look pretty good to me. Man, it just looks like a pretty good team. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, a little bit different than the match, or not a little bit, a lot different than the matchup you got on Thursday. I mean, it's a team that wants to go inside. I mean, they are going to get a bulk of their buckets from in the paint, and so it'll be sort of a clash of styles between these two teams.
Yeah. Kansas tends to run at a pretty high pace. I can see that. They're a very good two-point shooting team, mostly because of Lawson is very, very good inside there. And their two-point defense is very good. Look pretty good, man. You hear a lot of bitching about Kansas, 26-9. And they had some points there in the season where they lost a bunch. I mean, they lost to West Virginia. It was not very good this year. They lost to Kentucky.
They had the toughest schedule in the country as well.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of these games. They played a lot of people. Played Tennessee, played Marquette, played Vermont. All those are teams. Michigan State.
Played
Villanova.
New Mexico State.
Oh, yes, right. It was a 3-point victory for the Jayhawks, as I recall. That was a neutral site location in Kansas City, for what that's worth.
And I think they had a big Jayhawk at midcourt, so it was like a neutral site game that was pitched as a home game. I mean, it's referred to as a semi-home game.
Were there a lot of Kansas people there yesterday, Benny? I mean, did you see them just around?
There were. I think I've seen mostly Gonzaga fans has been what the fan base that I've seen the most of, probably just because it's kind of in this part of the country. And
do they drink a lot?
I really don't know. I would assume so. I feel like people from Washington turn up.
Spokane's a big drinking town.
Oh.
I haven't been there. I just read it in a magazine. All right, so the game again, 8:40 in God's country is the time for tip-off there on TBS. I know Ben is picking Auburn to beat Kansas. By how much?
15?
7. Okay. I was going to say 15, but that's fine. We'll go with 7. You're there in Salt Lake. You would know better than I do.
I mean, shoot. I thought for most of that game yesterday that Auburn was just going to pull away with that thing. I couldn't believe what I was watching in that final minute.
I couldn't believe it either. And you know what? I don't think the people in the bunker could believe it either. Because the team's been playing smart basketball the last month. And for them to just kind of bonk out like that was weird.
Well, and they played smart basketball for like 35 minutes. I mean, I don't think Jared Harper had a turnover until like the 5-minute mark. And then he had like 4 in the last 4 minutes.
Mr. Harrell wants to know if you have been to the Great Salt Lake yet. I know the answer to that is no. He wants you to know that there are shrimp in the Great Salt Lake.
So yeah, I told you on Wednesday I hiked up a place called Ensign Peak where you can sort of oversee the city and oversee the Great Salt Lake, but they had some information plaques, Great Salt Lake, and I found out that it's so salty that fish can't even live there. It's only shrimp.
Only shrimps. The shrimp love the salt, I'm told.
I guess so. Good
call there, Mr. Harrell. You're doing a hell of a job. Before we break out of here, Benny, I do want to give a couple shout-outs here. I know you've got one here at the end I'll say for you. I do want to give a shout-out to Easterwood, who I think was complaining this morning that we hadn't done a rundown in like a minute, although we had actually done one just 2 days earlier. But anyway, or maybe he was just saying he wanted one in the interim, but I couldn't really tell what was going on. But I'm going to tell you what. Easterwood listens to our shows. We appreciate that very much, and he cares deeply. About what, I don't know, but he cares a lot. Shout out for you. I also want to give a shout out. This one's kind of weird. I don't even know what I'm doing here, but Men's Softball Enthusiasts and Cowardly Toaster have been stumping for shout outs for those AuburnSports.com subscribers, former or current, or just anybody else who's been incarcerated. He wants us to tell them, hey, we haven't forgotten about you. We know you're in there paying your debt to society, and you could come through the penal system as a better person. You're not always going to face that scarlet letter, so to speak. You can do your time and come out better. We haven't forgotten about you. So shout out to Men's Softball Enthusiasts and Cowardly Toaster for thinking of those people. And we are also thinking of them too. Benny, you got one?
I did want to give a shout out to our guy, 94WDE, who pointed out in the game thread yesterday that there had not been many score updates throughout the thread, which I maybe... a little too much. Never question someone's literacy, It's just not a cool thing.
Well, you weren't actually questioning literacy. You were questioning his ability to read numbers, right?
Well, I guess I wasn't questioning his literacy. I just sort of completely dismissed the possibility of his literacy and was just thinking that he might be able to read numbers. But my point is, people started to kind of pile on him. He and I smoothed things over.
Great.
I don't want any cyberbullying going on. I know that cyberbullying doesn't happen on the bunker ever, so I wouldn't want that to happen. But I just wanted to give a shout out to 94 WDE. I want to thank him for being a part of the thread. I want to apologize for it getting maybe a little out of hand, people, jumping in there on him. So, take it easy on people. Like I said, Doc Dumpster says it best. We're all family here.
Hey, we're all family.
Family.
Tell you somebody else that's family, Voodoo Wing Company. That place is an awesome place to eat. They've been supporting us for a minute. And if you guys like what we do here at auburnsports.com, go check them out too. And it's not just because you love us, you love your taste buds. And that's a place where you can get nourished to the delight of your taste buds. Let me assure you, as a former fat man myself, I'll tell you, and a wing connoisseur, that place they do work. Craddock was saying earlier in the chat, he's been there and they're damn good. I mean, you don't have to take my word for it. All right, Craddock, just go. It's good, I promise. If you're looking for a new or used Toyota vehicle, I know the place for you to go. Lynch Toyota of Auburn, just a little bit south of the interstate off of College Street. I think Benny lives out that way. Yeah. Anyway, it's near the new, I think they call it the True. It's a new Hilton property. There's also a new courtyard there, right down the road from there. And if I'm telling you, those guys, best general manager on the planet, we know that for sure. We're checking to see if extraterrestrial life is any better, but I'm fairly certain Paul's going to be judged the best GM in the entire galaxy. And everybody there knows what they're doing. They're great. Believe me, I've worked with them several times. And also to our awesome subscribers at auburnsports.com, we could not do this without you. Couldn't do the show. Benny couldn't go to Salt Lake and enjoy the salty water, where I'm sure he's going to find some delicious shrimp later in the day. We thank you very much for supporting what we do here at auburnsports.com. We couldn't do it without you, as I mentioned. And God bless you guys for sticking with us. Many of you in 20 years. Some of you. Ghost of Tallahassee Tiger may have taken some time off, but he's back, and he was a very important part of what we did in the very beginning. And there's other people like that. Will Cawley or Archie. Tons of folks like that. If you're not a subscriber, you should be. And I'll let you figure it out on how you should do that. Guys, we're going to wrap it up there. Benny's going to continue doing his diligent work in Salt Lake City. They've got a press conference coming up here and availability in the next 30 minutes. And he will, I'm sure, gather a bunch of good stuff there and then report to the bunker immediately, won't you, Benny?
Absolutely. I will. We have Auburn goes first. We get open locker room from 1:35 to 2:15. And during that time, coaches and players will go up on the podium as well. And then Kansas will be the 40 minutes of media time after that. So I will absolutely report back with things that Kansas had to say, things that Auburn had to say, and it should be pretty interesting.
All right, until then, keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars.
Love you guys.
What a show, Benny.
That was good.
That was absolutely incredible. How much time do you have, like 10 minutes?
No, Auburn practice ends in 20 minutes, and then we get open locker room starts at 1:35 my time, so 2:35 your time. What do you think? I mean, what I did Wednesday is I just went and did open locker room, and then I came back and caught the tail end of Bruce Pearl's press conference. But yeah, I just feel like it's more useful being in the open locker room because I can get different stuff.
I mean, if you wanted to ask a question and then bounce, could you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I probably won't do student athletes at the podium just because they're never that great at the podium anyways. No, so I'll do open locker room for the first 20 minutes, and then I will. It just kind of depends too, because Bruce has been giving us the beat guys our own little off to the side deal. Yeah. So I'll play it by ear.
That's good stuff there.
I'll have something similar as well to what I did with New Mexico State on Kansas, just sort of what Kansas said about Auburn as well.
All right. Benny, you behave yourself.
I'm going to try, man. I'll tell you what, the fatigue is catching up to me. I can only imagine what it's like for the guys that have actually been playing basketball games.
Man, it's tough when you just got to be tough. All right, we're going to wrap it up there. For those of you who are still on the stream, thanks for watching. Let's see, Torqued, Mr. Harrell, War Eagle Girls there, Chase, Craddock. I feel like we've had some other ones too. Chris
Brian
Johnson.
Matthews.
Yeah, well, Brian took off. He signed off earlier. It was sad. But thanks for watching and commenting. Mr. Carter as well. And until we see you again, y'all behave. Peace.